Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition. This is Cross Functionality, the show connecting coaching, baseball, softball, male, female, hosted by former college baseball and softball players. Thank you for joining us today, episode 47. What are we on? Episode 48, I think.
Huh.
Right, episode 48. I'm sorry. Well, I'm losing track of all of our episodes. It's flying by. Episode 48 today, talking about seeing opportunities. So let me bring in my friend, co-host, renowned professional coach, and of course, softball national champion at the University of Alabama, Cassie Reilly-Boccia. Cassie, what's going on?
Thanks for having me. All is good today. No complaints.
A lot of stuff I've seen on Instagram this week. One of them with Pat Murphy, being in Italy, enjoying his time over there. Head coach, of course, for the renowned University of Alabama softball program. It's Italy, right? I'm glancing through all his pictures here. I know he's overseas right now, right? They're in Italy. Is that correct? Yeah.
No, I don't know what started it, but it was, I think, a year or two after I graduated. He had just said, he made a comment, and just almost how hard it was to win the national championship. And not that, oh, you're never going to win it, but it's like, what do teams, there's only one team that wins it all. So what do you have to hang your hat on? It's about so many of these experiences. And so he had the idea of over the summer taking these international trips to scrimmage different teams all over the globe, help grow softball, because obviously Alabama has a decent softball presence, but then also get his girls to potentially experience something in an international trip that they might have never done. So they've done, over the last 10 years, they've done the Netherlands, Japan, and now they did Italy. And I just think it's a very cool experience, and the girls seem to obviously get a lot out of it. And it's probably like a once in a lifetime thing to go on a trip with all your teammates,
Yeah, so you didn't do any of that, right?
No.
Before your time. That's cool, though, to go to Netherlands. And by the way, I was watching in the gym yesterday. This might be the first year that ESPN has been covering this, the Little League World Series for softball.
I saw that too. I think every now and then they'd have like the championship game, but it didn't have Little League coverage like the Little League World Series for baseball had.
And they have it's like full on coverage now. And I've got to tell you, I was watching a little bit of it yesterday, and this one girl was walking up to the plate. A lot of these girls, their swings look better than the boys. I know some baseball parents out there are probably going to get on us for that, but it is true. I mean, I'm watching this one girl get up to the plate, and her swing was it was practice swing, and then just the swing in general was a very pretty swing. It's like I was very.
As the sport gets better, these younger generations are going to get to look at, college softball players playing, and I think that helps. Yeah. You see videos of little kids in their living room trying to mimic Jocelyn Alo, in the living room. That's going to matter. That's going to trickle down.
Yeah, Montana Fouts, of course, being another one as well. But I think a lot of it. This is where all the content that's out there could really help both boys and girls now, right? I mean, you have two little kids, and I'm sure your boys will be playing baseball someday or some kind of sport, but they have the opportunity to be on TikTok and see all these drills that some of these people they look up to do on a daily basis. And I think that really helps them in a way. And I don't know, they kind of seem to like to get that to translate to the actual game. And I mean, again, I go back to that girl I saw yesterday in that game. I think she was the team that they were playing, that they were Pennsylvania and they were playing New York, I think. I think it was in the Northeast region. But this girl's swing, the practice swing she took was really, really good. And it really caught my eye. And I'm thinking, well, how did she learn that? Maybe really good coaching. I don't know. I mean, it's funny because I think that there's a lot of things out there that people can take advantage of, but there's not enough good coaches out there like yourself that would teach her something like that, right? So I'm thinking, okay, she probably learned that off social media or TikTok.
Right. Well, you know what? And that lends to like the next generation of coaches, right? So like if you are able to have opportunities where you're watching videos, coaching yourself, or you've been coached by someone who's really good, then all of a sudden maybe 10 of the 100 people that they get to coach maybe turn into coaches when they get older. And so, I'm hoping that's what happens with the softball generation, because so much of it has been governed by male coaches coming into softball, which is fine. But I'm excited to see the next generation of young female athletes who have access to all this information as they're growing up to then turn into coaches themselves when they get done playing.
Question. So you mentioned there, I'm just off the top of my head. So I know about Pat Murphy's background, obviously, and whatnot. But do male coaches, when they come into softball, higher levels of softball, what do you notice about their background? You know what I mean? Like, in other words, are they former baseball players, former big leaguers, former what? I mean, do they have an extensive, long coaching background? Something they started studying when they were in college, and then a grad assistant, and then eventually working their way up. So, when it comes to male coaches entering the softball field, what's their background like? What have you noticed?
I've seen a little bit of both. I've seen people who went to college and saw softball and was like, I want to be a part of this, and became a graduate assistant as they went to college, and knew they wanted to be involved in softball from the start. There was a Missouri coach a little while ago that was known for just being very blunt and speaking his mind, but he said he came over from baseball because he said there's less coaching talent in softball, and I can make a lot more money faster over here. If I stayed in baseball, it would take me longer to rise to an SEC head coaching job.
Right.
So great. Not that I think every baseball guy who comes to softball has that idea in mind, but I think I think it really is a combination. I don't know if I actually know of any former minor or major league baseball players that are now coaching softball at that college level. But I've seen a lot of males coaching at that maybe high school, college level, let's say, that venture into maybe some softball stuff because, they were maybe at a smaller baseball school and then saw, hey, there's some unbelievable opportunities in softball with how the sport is growing.
Sure. Yeah. So when you were in high school and you were being recruited, coaches' backgrounds, how much did that mean to you in your selection?
I liked, I guess it didn't matter as much. I just thought it was so interesting how long certain coaches had been at universities or colleges, or, Murphy, for instance, was there from the very start of Alabama softball. The Northwestern coaches, they're twins. They've been there for a long, long time to grow that program. Michigan just retired a coach who was there for 20 plus years. So you had softball had such a strong history at so many of these colleges. It really didn't, I had appreciated when a coach hadn't bounced around 1 or 2 years at each college, I guess. That, not to say there's anything wrong with that. That's maybe someone just seeking better opportunities, but I thought it was very neat when someone was there and knew the history of the program and the team.
So the person you're referencing, a legend in the sport, Carol, I just looked her up, Carol Sue Hutchins. Carol Sue Hutchins, and she's listed now as a former softball coach. 38 years as the head coach.
There he goes, 38.
University of Michigan. Michigan's one of those schools that they've had coaches, not recently, but a lot of coaches in their athletic department that coached for many, many years. Lloyd Carr, I'm thinking of, right? He coached for what was it, 30, 40 years as the head man for football. And you don't often see that now. I mean, coaches, I saw a quote from Lane Kiffin about the NIL recently, and he talked about how it needs to be cleaned up. And I don't know the exact quote, but he wasn't really for the NIL. But coaches are just as guilty, if not more, even before the NIL. With the transfer portal now with kids and everything, coaches are they're just as guilty when moving schools and going from this school and then negotiating and trying to leverage more money against that current school, against their former employers. So it is good to see a coach like Miss Hutchins there staying for 38 years.
Yeah, I actually think the Lane Kiffin quote was, you've essentially made the NFL with no luxury tax and no cap.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But cool little side note about Coach Hutch. She is such a storied coach. She could have announced she was retiring, and that whole last year she would have been showered with gifts and thank yous. They would have honored her at every single stadium because she is such a legend. She instead announces over the summer that, hey, that was my last season. I'm retiring now. And so just no ego either. Like someone who's been around softball at a high level, was the first team to ever win a national championship east of the Mississippi. Well, I remember I was 15 watching that, and it was the first time there wasn't an Oklahoma, California, Arizona that won it. And I was like, whoa, that's what I wanted. I want to be able to do that one day, so it's very, very cool. She, like I said, she would have been showered with praise, and she didn't need any of it.
Side note, Miss Hutchins has great looking skin and very young looking. She has great complexion. I'm looking at a couple of pictures here. But 38 years for the context. She won more games than. Okay, yeah. So she won more games than any other coach in the University of Michigan history in any sport. And they've had a lot of good coaches, male, female. she has currently, well, I mean, it's her wins to her name, 1,684 career wins. Her career record, 1,707 wins, 551 losses, 5 ties, and a 759 winning percentage. Okay.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad for almost 40 years.
Not too shabby. She almost got to 2,000. Almost got to 2,000 wins. She would have if more games were played, of course.
Right.
All right, episode 48 today, talking about seeing opportunity. That's our main topic at hand. And with seeing opportunity, hard work is always involved. But when I was thinking about this topic and what we're going to talk about today, seeing opportunity, hard work can only take you so far. If you don't recognize that opportunity or perform when you get that opportunity and the lights are on you, then that hard work, it becomes non-existent at that point. So seeing opportunity and being able to recognize that proper opportunity and then perform when the lights are on you, when you're on that stage, is very, very important.
Yeah. And that hard work. And then even too, my first thought when I saw this was how intimately related our view of failure is and our view of opportunities, right? Because if we are viewing failure or disappointments as these ultimatums or, hey, this is deterring me from my goal, instead of just like, oh no, this has just opened up an opportunity for me to get better at X, Y, and Z. Number one, that tells me they're not afraid to go and lean into the difficult work, not necessarily hard work, because hard work looks very different, but the stuff that does not come easy to us. Then all of a sudden you can see opportunity in just about anything and everything you do. But if we view failures as disappointments, or if we have this fear of hard work that we don't even realize we have, then all of a sudden you're going to have opportunities there's going to be opportunities that exist that you don't even realize are there.
Right. And, talking about with you and you're going into a program there at the University of Alabama, however many years ago, 2008, right? The fall of 2008, very long time ago, which is hard to believe. For both of us, of course, but you're going into that program, and now you're one of the freshmen, right? The new first-year students, and you're trying to navigate your way, and you're trying to find that opportunity because you have the depth chart. You have a lot of people that may be perceived as being in front of you. So how did you go about trying to find that opportunity as a freshman and really make your mark early on in fall ball?
Yeah, you know what? I think it was a combination of how you're brought up, right, and how you view certain situations. If I had parents who really were like, you have to be playing or else you're not being successful or blah, 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 like that would have been a very intimidating environment to go into because, you could be really, really good and still not be a part of the team that fits to play at a top 5 program. And then I think secondly, too, it's a combination of what our coaches preach to us about, okay, this is how we're going to define your opportunities and your successes. And it was, hey, you have an opportunity to push the person in front of you, right? If we're going to be better as a whole, even if you are 3, 4, whatever it is, you're going to make it your job every day to make sure the person starting doesn't ever take a day off. Because they're going to look at you and be like, oh my gosh, this is the girl that's number 2 or number 3. And it's not even that it's fear of the number 1 losing their job. It's how could I be so disrespectful as to not bust my butt right now? If the person underneath me is busting my butt. So it was so ingrained in us just how much your work mattered and what opportunities you were opening up for other people or what opportunities they're opening up for you. That culture was just bred in us. And I think that was huge for just keeping that positive outlook when you get onto a team where everybody you're looking at is a chance to be an All-American, essentially.
So when you were in practice, what kind of specific opportunities did you notice and say, as an opportunity right there, I have to take it?
Sure. There was a All-American hitter who, probably at the time, so 2009 season, she was, I think, like the 6th or 7th best hitter in the nation the year before, Charlotte Morgan, and she had a stress fracture in her foot. And so Murphy looked at me and said, I can't put her anywhere else on the field. If she can't DH, she's playing first base that day. And so he handed me an outfield mitt and he said, have you ever played outfield before? And I go, nope, but I'll figure it out. And I just took off.
Yeah.
I took off to right field.
Okay, so what was that experience like for you?
It was terrible. I thought outfield was like, right, just outfield. I know how to catch fly balls. I had never outfield in college when someone is throwing spin and the girls are actually hitting missiles and not just lazy fly balls is a completely different game. It's like every girl that you're facing at the plate was the best at their previous high school. So that number 3 hitter that you kind of backed up for and played the ball for in high school, that's 1 through 9 in college, right? So those were some of like my loneliest days, I think, ever, was going to play for the University of Alabama, wanting to show off that I'm like good enough to be there, and then making a fool of myself in the outfield my first few weeks in practice. But I just remember thinking like, okay, it's got to get better at some point. Like this work has to pay off at some point, and giving up wasn't, I don't know, I just wasn't an alternative. I guess I was willing to show up to the embarrassment, even though it was hard. There's a lot of times where I would like miss a ball and just get so teary-eyed with frustration in the outfield, but super supportive teammates, and I don't know, my only option was to work. And so if anyone ever took batting practice, I would just go play outfield and run around in circles. Because the other thing too is if you're not fast, you have to have really good reads on the ball.
Yeah.
And so not only did I not have any experience getting good reads on the ball, I was so slow. So.
They don't do they don't do like a 60-yard dash, do they, in softball?
You know what? They might now. Those combine testing stuff really wasn't around when I was playing. But yeah, it's baseball. The fact that they do a 60 is like, we have our thoughts about that as a strength and conditioning profession, that you don't ever run 60 yards.
Right. I always found that. Yeah, good point. I always found that to be. I'm with you on that. And sidebar here, right? A little weird. Like, why are you running straight 60 yards? I don't understand that, because you don't run straight 60 yards in any part of baseball or softball.
You know? Right. Yeah. I mean, shoot, a home to first time, even like a home to second time would be a little bit more applicable. But besides the point, yeah. I was quick. I had really good footwork at first base, and that definitely helped with my.
And you were recruited as a first baseman, correct?
Oh yeah, that was
yes.
Yeah. That
okay.
was the only place I ever played. I was honestly, if I'm being very honest, I was recruited as a hitter, and I think at the time Murph was like, "All right, if you can really prove yourself as a hitter, we'll say a Hail Mary and put you in right field."
Right.
That was basically it.
And he said that, I'm guessing, what freshman year, but you were recruited as a hitter, so you were like, like what Miguel Cabrera has gotten paid all that money for many years, right? To be a hitter, not to be, a third baseman or first baseman. By the way, he was a very good third baseman when he first came up with the Marlins. But and I'm sure you were a very good first baseman as well. You were a very good fielder, because you're not the type that likes to cut corners in any way or just focused on one singular thing, which was hitting. You probably focused on, trying to get better at first base as well. But hitting was your main thing. Yes, but then you get thrown into right field, and this is one of your biggest opportunities of your career right now as a freshman, right? In 2008, getting a chance to play the outfield and learn the outfield. I mean, what kind of pressure was now put on you? Because you have this opportunity in the palm of your hand now, right? You can already hit. You know that. You know what your skill set is on the field. What was it like for you? What were some of those external thoughts that you may have had, or some of that? How do you internalize all of this when you were put out there in right field and you were kind of making some mistakes and you were kind of learning along the way? Yeah,
you know what? It was one of those things, because like I don't know, I guess I always had the thought, I wasn't this like cocky, oh, I belong here and no one can convince me otherwise. I definitely went in with like, I was constantly battling doubt. I was constantly like having to work so hard to make sure that doubt of, hey, do you actually belong here? Is this too big of a stretch? Is a New York girl actually going to be able to play in the South? Like all of those things, because I was the first and still the only girl ever to come from the state of New York as a freshman to play at Alabama. And so I almost felt like, okay, like if I don't show up and play, or if I tank here, then it's just going to be, all right, everyone else is right. You know what I mean? Like the Northeast isn't as good. So it was always just battling that. Like, and I think I had struggled before. I had gotten into these massive slumps in high school before. So I felt like I had a lot of tools to get through it. And I just kept telling myself, like, this is a fielding slump and you'll come out of it. Like, you're not going to be terrible forever if you work this hard. And so, and it took, I mean, granted, a couple of months wasn't much, but I think when your teammates see you working that hard and trying to have that good of an attitude, the amount of support. I had someone come running up to me and was like, hey, listen, I played right field my first year. I had one ball come to me in the first 5 games. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, our pitchers are great. She's like, you're not going to really get that many balls hit to you. Like practice, you get 25 balls hit to you. She's like, you're going to get maybe one ball. And so something as simple as that. And then the center fielder is 4-time All-American. She's the mother of my goddaughters, like one of the fastest girls in the time in the SEC. And she goes, "Hey, if it's fair, I can probably get to it." She goes, "If you could just take care of foul territory, just
Yeah, that's right. Everything on the other side of the line, which is a very small little pocket
right."
there.
And here's the other thing too: you play a spring sport, so when you get there in August, you have August, September, October, November. You have your time at home in December. Then we get to practice outside in January, and then so you have 6 months.
Yeah.
If you are busting your butt at something and you truly want to get better at it, and you're going up to hitters and other outfielders asking advice, like talking to the coaches, what can I do better? It's something's going to click. You're not going to stay the same in those 6 months. So even though I wasn't the best right fielder when it came time for opening day, I wasn't going to hurt the team.
Right.
So I ended up starting in right field. And I would usually finish the game at first base just based on how the lineup went. But yeah, that was my whole first year, right field to first base.
But you had to be a little overwhelmed, though, with and we're going down the rabbit hole here, but you had to be a little overwhelmed with the things you had to learn to play right field successfully, from footwork to transfer to arm action, all the smaller little nuance, unless I'm thinking through the lens of baseball now, but unless it's a little bit different with softball. But there are some intricacies that you need to learn fundamentally, right? When you're playing right field, playing the outfield, that you didn't maybe know before.
Oh, for sure. No, it was a huge learning curve. Yes, overwhelming, but then also too, I go back to my journaling from that year, and I wrote everything down from practice, because it was also like, gosh, like here's the other end of it. Like, you're playing at the University of Alabama with some of the best coaches in the nation, surrounded by All-Americans. Like, yes, it's a lot, but it's also, you're getting a crash course in softball. You're getting like the best degree ever in softball. So if you're in love with the sport, it was also, it was like the best thing ever too at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, and people have to remember that when you go to a big time program like that, you are really getting a crash course in whatever sport you may be playing, because you have some of the best coaches in the entire world. I'm a little surprised. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm a little bit surprised there aren't more coaches generated from some of these top SEC programs throughout every sport, because you're learning, and of course you're the exception, but you're learning so much from some of the best coaches in the best conference.
You do see a lot of girls start coaching at the college level, like especially now they have the third assistant. We're seeing a ton of these coaching positions pop up. But I guess what you don't see as often is people doing it privately and then being able to make it their primary job. I think just the way the private coaching industry works, it's very few times do you find a job with benefits. Very few times are you able to generate enough revenue to justify working, maybe like the 6-7 hours straight of coaching in a day. And then so I think it's very difficult to make it your primary profession. And if I'm being honest, if I didn't have my business partner in the platform that I have in New York, that would be very difficult for me as well. So I think it's not as easy, I guess, to make it your primary thing to do post college. It's the industry isn't always there.
Well, you saw an opportunity there, and that's the main topic of our show today. And you seem to be very good and have a knack at seeing opportunities, or even creating opportunities, going all the way back to when you were a freshman in college. So what's some advice that you may have for athletes today when it comes to seeing that opportunity? Let's see it through the lens of Cassie, and how you may recognize an opportunity and take advantage of that and pass some advice along.
Sure. So I think, that when I was thinking about this today, I think being courageous was such a huge staple. Granted, your courage comes from a lot of ways. I had a ton of parental support. But when I first got out of college, I moved back home, trying to find a job, and I have this opportunity to open a facility with somebody. And I look at my parents and I'm like, hey, if I do this, I'm going to have to maybe stay at home for a little while longer. This isn't going to be like hey, right away, you're making a salary type thing. But I was just, I don't know, I was willing, for the time of my life I was at, this seemed like the right choice. And it seemed like, I don't know, even though I had so many people telling me like, this is not what you want to do. Like, facilities are loss leaders. They're not going to yield you a good stable career. I don't know. It just, it was something about Murphy used to always say, you surround yourself with good people, good things happen. And my business partner I was with was a good person. And I knew even if this venture didn't work, I was at least going to learn from a really good person. And then, so I think being courageous to that, because you're going to go on a travel team and people are going to tell you you're insane for traveling this much. This softball is just a sport. It's not your whole life. You're going to pick a college that might be not as well known for academics. And you're going to have people tell you you should be going for academics more than softball. Why are you doing this? Whatever it may be, there's just like, whether that is other people you hear, or maybe it's your own internal voice that's doubting you, being able to have that courage to fight against some of that doubt is, I think, going to be your first step to taking advantage, at least, of opportunities. Because so many times we have them and we see them, but we're probably nervous about taking advantage of them. And then I think, too, the next thing is almost being a little bit curious. I lose my curiosity when I get burnt out. So I notice when I'm burnt out, it's almost like just going through your day-to-day becomes overwhelming. But when you can take a step out of that and you get past some burnout, or you handle the burnout that you're dealing with, all of a sudden you can start to get curious of, well, how much smarter can I get? How much better can I get? How much more can I improve? And when you're curious about what your ceiling actually looks like, that's when an opportunity shows up and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I am going to go for that, because I'm curious to see how much better this can make me. And I think when we go through life and we have some struggles in life, that opportunity is always there. We're just not going to be able to see it then because of what's going on.
You mentioned something in there too about coaching and just that internal struggle that you may have had, that internal voice. I find that to be, and the internal voice meaning doubting you. I find that, in my opinion, that's something that's always going to be there for everybody in life, right? I mean, that's just it's hard to excuse that, so to speak, right? But when it comes to the people, like you mentioned with Murph, they're saying, hey, surround yourself with good people. When it comes to people from the outside, though, doubting you, that could be really tough as well. But if you notice, the one common denominator with all those people who do doubt your goals and doubt what you want to do, whether it's athletically, whether it's in business, whether you're an entrepreneur, whatever doubt that those people may have of you, even if you're putting a really good product out there, those people who doubt you, and correct me, I want to hear your opinion on this. Those people have never really truly succeeded. They have never won the proverbial championship ring that you have in the physical form.
Yeah, and yes, and I also think too, it's because you're gonna have two different types of like doubt, right? It's I think you're gonna have people who really, really care about you, who are almost portraying their own anxieties on you, right? So they're
projecting.
Yes, exactly, 100%. So they're anxious about taking a risk and maybe going for something, and they don't want you to ever experience, or maybe they've taken a risk or made some decisions or whatever it was and it didn't work out, and they want to protect you from it, right? So they're trying to flood you with like, oh, listen, it's going to be a lot of work and you're going to have to go through this, and there's a chance that your investment's not going to work out and whatever else. And so it's not necessarily that they're doing it to harm you. It's just that is an opinion that they have, and you have to just, it's not that you ignore it, you take it in, like you lean into it and be like, okay, yes, this is going to be hard, and but even if all these things happen, will me taking advantage of this opportunity still make sense? And I don't know where it came from, but I guess I'm thankful for it, because I used to be able to always ask myself the question, is this going to bug me at night while I'm trying to go to sleep if I don't do this? And if I really thought, maybe, I really think I could say no to this and move on, and this really wouldn't bug me, then it usually wasn't a good indication, this is probably not where I need to be. But if I felt like it was going to start to gnaw at me and nag at me, then I'd really try to give it a lot more consideration. And another, practice, that you could do if you are trying to, because this episode doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say yes to every single opportunity that comes your way. It is just about seeing them and kind of, wrestling with them. But I remember I got asked to interview for a Division I coaching job, and I was 2 years into the facility, and it was fine. It was a hard spot. I was coaching 8, 9, 10-hour sessions a day, and I was like, is this going to be the rest of my life? And the phone call came, hey, do you want to interview for this job? They really like it. And I was like, damn, do I? And I pretended I was like driving home with Grandma Cassie. I just pretended like she was there. And I don't know, the one question that just came back is how are you going to make the biggest impact? And I still felt like it was going to be at my current position. And so that's not saying, yes, it is saying no to one opportunity, but it was all of a sudden diving into my current situation with new vision of opportunities that existed there already that I was probably missing because of burnout or because of whatever else.
Yeah, I love doing the show every week because you always open up a different line of thinking for me that I maybe didn't see before, and talking about there with that story, looking at the bigger picture. By the way, one more quick point too. If anybody out there watches Shark Tank, I'm sure you do. If you ever notice the people on the Shark Tank panel, whoever that is at that time, unless your product is really, really bad, they never insult you, the product, or insult what you're trying to do. They word it, the sharks, as if to say, this is not the market for me. I'm not sure that this can be scaled, whatever. They never put in that doubt. It's never that external doubt coming from them. They know how to word it correctly. So so what we were talking about a little bit earlier, there's a difference between people who are saying I just won't work for me, or just I don't, whatever, how the sharks do it on Shark Tank, whatever their method is, and people who are projecting on you their insecurities and saying to you, you know what, you're never gonna, it's never gonna work for you, or you're never gonna play here, or you're never gonna be able to start this business. You won't, projecting again their own insecurities. And you got to kind of flush that away, because if you let that get into your head, I believe you're not going to be able to see the proper opportunities that are out there.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And that's a great way to put it, and that's the same thing a great coach is going to do when they're trying to critique you or whatever it may be. It's not insulting you as a person or insulting your skill. It's just like, listen, because you might go to a coach and be like, I want more playing time opportunities. And I say, great. This is what I need to see more of, and this is why we're in the current situation we're in. A good coach. There's not always good coaches in place so there are coaches, you hear stories that will insult the person and whatever it may be. But I think it's the same thing when you go into a job situation. You say, hey, it's not like I would like a $10,000 raise, give it to me now, or I'm walking. It's, hey, this is where what I'd like to be making. Can we sit down and you help me try to figure out how I can achieve that? What are my steps? What do I need to be doing in order to potentially achieve that? I think it's the same thing for playing time, or it's the same thing for wanting to go play for an organization. It's you go into a recruiting situation and be like, yeah, I would love to see myself starting here one day. What are your thoughts on how I can potentially get there? And it's just reframing something a little bit with the language you use and how you're viewing the situation. And then all of a sudden that coach is going to, or that employer is going to just say, well, this, and this. And now you have opportunity 1, opportunity 2, opportunity 3, opportunity 4 to improve yourself.
So any further advice you may have today about seeing opportunity as we wind down our episode this week, episode 48?
Yeah, maybe just the last thing is that you're never going to have a crystal ball and be sure of where an opportunity takes you. But if you can start to have some of those, I guess, moral compass checks where you ask yourself the question whether you're sitting with your grandma or grandpa self, or you maybe, if something is tugging on your heart enough, it usually means something. If it's bothering you enough, it usually means something, but you're never going to know for sure. You can go down any rabbit hole you want and take advantage of any opportunity you want. And the point is that even if it doesn't work out what you thought your desired outcome was going to be, that process, the confidence of just going for it and attempting something and working hard at it, who cares how it ends up? It's just part of your life at that point, part of your story.
Right. Yeah. At that point, it's up to fate, right?
I mean, shoot, if you look at our facility, technically, we did not come back during COVID. We basically reopened, and I'm wearing it right now. We originally opened as Athletes Warehouse. COVID happened. We tried to come back, and the only thing that survived was our baseball program. And now people know us as Velo U or Softball Strength Academy more than Athletes Warehouse. And
if they're watching the show on the Softball Strength Academy YouTube page, where can they get that nice sweatshirt or other products?
There is another company that does not, in our agreement to use this name, they do not let us sell our merchandise. However, if you sign up for our services, we send you free stuff. But we can't sell our merchandise. That was part of our trademarking agreement.
Okay.
which is an interesting animal.
Yeah, I don't want to get you sued. Okay. Well, email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. Next week, episode 49, we will be discussing a lot into adaptability, being able to adapt. We'll be talking about that, episode 49, next week. Do you have anything else before we get going?
No, all good. Just excited. 4 more weeks until we don't have life without college football. College football comes back in 4 weeks.
Do you have any predictions for the upcoming season?
Yes, the SEC will do well, and Florida and Georgia and Tennessee will do.
Is there any Tennessee in there? Okay.
I think so. I think they'll do better than we think.
Do you think Texas this year will be able to beat Alabama?
No. I will never pick against Alabama just from a pure bias standpoint. I cannot objectively speak of Alabama sports.
Okay. What about Georgia? Did you throw Georgia in there? I hope you did.
Yeah. I think they're going to be good too. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. 4 more. That's right. 4 more weeks. The summer is almost over. Thank you, everybody, for listening. By the way, and just to be clear, Cassie is not selling any merchandise. Just want to be clear on that. Thank you for listening and watching.